Well, good evening, and welcome to Airmanship 2.0 Case Study Number 10, No Homesick Angel. I'm Dave Cook. I'm the Executive Director for the Center for Airmanship Excellence, and I'm going to be working with you on this case study this evening. Thanks for coming. I see we have some new names on the roster this evening, folks who haven't attended this series of webinars before, so I'll make the assumption that you need a little quick panel check out on your control panel for GoToWebinar. The white arrow in the orange rectangle collapses or expands your screen. And if you want to ask a question or you have a comment to make, please hit this icon, click on it, so I can see your hands raised. Now, there are a lot of people on the webinar this evening, so I have to occasionally scroll through the roster to check and see if hands are up, so please be patient. If you do have your hand up, I'll catch it eventually. All right, if you do have a window for text messaging this evening, please don't use it. I don't have anyone monitoring that, and again, because so many people are on the webinar, I won't be able to take text messages as questions or anything this evening. So let's do a little training test here. I'd like to ask everyone to please raise their hands right now. Click on that raise your hand icon. Great, I see a lot of them going up. Not everybody's trained yet though. PTS on this is raise your hand. Okay, well, I see a lot of people with the hands up, some without. Don't know if you're having a problem finding that icon or if you just took up and you're not participating. But okay, I'm going to put all the hands down. Very good. Now, as I'm sure you've already noticed, this is a PowerPoint presentation, but no sleeping, because you're going to get one Wings program credit for attending this session. And it's all awarded to you automatically if you participate. I have a printout that shows me who participated in the WEBS program webinar this evening, Wings program webinar. And then I go through my lead rep and the program manager, and we get your credit for this. So it just sometimes takes a couple of days. So be patient if you're checking your credits, but you don't have to send me an email or do anything other than participate to receive the credit. The sponsors of this webinar this evening are the FAA safety team, and I am a volunteer safety rep, and the Center for Airmanship Excellence. All right, I'd like to take just a minute or two here to kind of get to know who's on the webinar this evening. So if you'd like to answer one or more of these questions for us so we get a kind of an idea of who's here, please raise your hand. All right, well, I'm not seeing any hands. There's a go. Robert Bourget. Robert, I've opened up your mic. Hang on a minute, Robert. For some reason, your mic will not unmute. You might have your mic muted on your end. Okay. Guess we're not going to get comm established there. Matthew Coombs. Matthew, I've opened up your mic. Are you there?
Yeah.
Loud and clear, Matthew. Go ahead. I can hear loud and clear. Go ahead.
Yep, I fly the Embraer 145. I'm based in Indy and flying regularly. Airline pilot here.
Maybe a little too regularly, huh?
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm on an overnight right now.
Oh, well, good way to spend a layover. I spent 22 years with United, and I you know, now that we're talking about this, it would have been nice to have webinars available on layover. So thanks. Welcome, Matthew. Get a good rest after this is over with. How about Lawrence Kensington? Lawrence, I've opened up your mic. Lawrence, are you there? Okay, we're not getting any comm out of Lawrence. Let me just scroll a little bit more through. Here's a bunch of names. How about John Green? John, I've opened up your mic.
Hi, Dave.
Good evening.
Good evening. Yeah, I'm only a single-engine land guy, but I do have a commercial rating, so I get to fly other people's airplanes from wherever their home drome is.
That's great. Where are you based?
Indianapolis.
Indy, good. Well, welcome. Yeah, that's the best way to fly, right? Either have a good friend with an airplane or be able to get people to pay you to do it. I agree with that for sure. Let me just think. How about Brandor Retke, if I'm not murdering that name too much? Brandor, I've opened up your mic. Okay, I hear something, but I'm not getting anything. Okay, I'll close that mic. Let me just go one more time through here and pick maybe a couple more people. How about, stand by, Mike Coplin. Mike Coplin, are you there? Mark Coplin.
Yeah, hi, is that, you mean Mark Copeland?
Copeland, there you go, thank you.
Yeah, first name's Mark. Yeah, I fly a 172R. In fact, tomorrow is my my BFR that I've got to do, so I'm always working on some of these wings credits. I fly out of the Chicago area, DPA, out of DuPage, and I'm also building a Vans RV-9A, and I hope to have it moved to an airport by the end of this year, 2012.
Great, Mark. Well, we wish you all the luck on that. Now, that's a long, hard project, but good luck on your flight review tomorrow. I'm sure you do a good job.
Thank you, sir.
Yep, thanks for attending, and thanks for recognizing the value of these Wings Programs events. Okay, I don't see any other hands popping up here. How about one more? How about Tom Vogt? Tom, I've opened up your mic. Can you hear us?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear, Tom.
Great. Yeah. Well, I bought a PA-12 Piper Super Cruiser about 20 years ago, and I've been flying it around Wisconsin mostly ever since. And grassroots is something I really enjoy doing.
Great. Well, thanks, Tom. Yeah, it's good old tail dragger flying and out of a grass strip. That's some of my favorite kind of flying, too. Well, all right. I'm going to make sure everybody is muted. I'm putting all the hands down. So, again, if you have a question or comment, please raise your hand. But, again, bear with me. I've got to occasionally scroll through the roster to see who has their hands up. All right. At this point in these series of webinars, I usually go into about a 10 or 12 slide briefing on Airmanship 2.0 because I think you need the context of Airmanship 2.0 to get the most value out of the way we're approaching this case study this evening. But I've also noted that at every one of these webinars, successive webinars, we have more and more repeat customers. So I don't want to keep going over this and over this for everybody. So I've boiled it down to about 4 slides here. Just take a couple minutes to go through, and I'm hoping that for those of you who have not been exposed to the concept of Airmanship 2.0 before, that this at least will give you a framework, get you started on what it is so that we can use Airmanship 2.0 to analyze this accident this evening. And this is, again, Airmanship 2.0 is a term that was coined by the Center for Airmanship Excellence. It's not in the AIM or Flight Handbook or any place else. And we've coined it Airmanship 2.0 because it's different. It's a different approach to airmanship than the old approach, which most of us in personal flying have been practicing since we learned to fly, Airmanship 1.0. But this is Airmanship 2.0, and it's different considerably. Now, one of the things that we use in Airmanship 2.0 to explain it, to look at it, use it as a tool, is the Kern Airmanship Model. Now, we called it the Kern Airmanship Model because it was developed by Dr./Colonel Tony Kern, who's written 5 books on airmanship. I think the best one, if you're going to start with one of them, is Redefining Airmanship, Tony Kern. Still in print. Get it at Amazon. Great book, but all 5 of them are really good, and he really gets to the bottom of airmanship. And a bunch of us old heads here in the center have read his books and looked at all of this, and we really don't find anything we disagree with. And you know how unusual that is for a group of pilots to agree on everything. So we think this is a way to approach airmanship, part of Airmanship 2.0, and this is, I'll give you a quick flyby here on the Kern Airmanship Model. The Kern Airmanship Model is made up of 3 bedrock principles: flight discipline, skill, and proficiency. And then upon those 3 bedrock principles sit the 5 pillars of knowledge: knowledge of self, knowledge of aircraft, knowledge of team, knowledge of environment, and knowledge of risk. And then upon those 5 pillars of knowledge rest our desired outcomes, capstone outcomes of situational awareness and judgment. So it's a nice, neat little picture, a good way to look at how to think about airmanship, and it results in good judgment, which of course is the key, right? That's what keeps us alive, or if it's faulty, maybe we have a less desirable outcome. Another way to think about Airmanship 2.0 is think of it as doing it right. And by doing it right, we mean doing it the way the airlines and the military do it, doing it the way professionals do it, but with all of the methodical approaches to it and all of the tools that are available today. So doing it right. And again, the explanation of doing it right, there's a long list, and I'm not taking the time in this briefing to give you that, but I'll show you where you can find that info in a minute. Airmanship 2.0, and this is a very important concept, includes continuous airmanship development. Continuous airmanship development. You don't just develop your airmanship when you add a rating or a certificate or take your flight review. You are continuously, every flight, but in a methodical way, a planned way, developing your airmanship under Airmanship 2.0. And here you can see a graphic of the 7-step process we use to develop a continuous airmanship development plan. Vince Lombardi said, perfection is not attainable, but if we chase perfection, we can catch excellence. And that's really what we're talking about here with this continuous airmanship development plan. I mean, I've been flying a long time, over 50 years, 20,000 hours, something like that. North, I don't keep close track anymore. Done a lot of different things in aviation, and the last perfect flight I had was, I guess there never was one. So no matter how much time you have, what kind of training you have, you're never going to achieve that perfection, but we must chase after it if we want to become excellent. I hope everyone here tonight wants to become an excellent airman. As I mentioned briefly, Airmanship 2.0 is really the way that the airlines and the military have been approaching airmanship since the early 1980s. I was flying at United in the early 1980s. I started there in '68, and that's United was the first major airline to implement cockpit resource management. We called it command leadership resource management. But same thing. It was the early days of it. It's developed over this 30 plus years now, for sure. It's gotten better. We have more tools. But when we say Airmanship 2.0, this is really what we mean. It's the way the airline pilots and the military pilots are approaching airmanship today, living it every single day. But we believe, and we're about to demonstrate, that you can bring all of this to the personal flying world so we can use it to keep our flying safer, more fun, more enjoyable, easier, and so forth. All right, that was a quick overview for sure. There's a lot of information about Airmanship 2.0 on the Center for Airmanship Excellence website, which is airmanshipexcellence.org. Just click on the Airmanship 2.0 button to go into that subweb, and there's all kinds of video briefings there on Airmanship 2.0, so you can find everything out about it you want to know. So I hope that's enough of a briefing for those of you who are not familiar with it, so that we can approach this case study on the same page. All right, let's just take a second for questions and or comments. I've got the roster open. I'm scanning the roster. If you have a question and or comment, please raise your hand now. All right, I see that. Oh, disregard that. Okay, I don't see any hands up. Let me scroll through one more time. Takes a second to scroll through. I only see about 6 names at a time. Okay, no hands up, so I assume there's no questions or comments at this time. We'll move forward. This, again, Airmanship 2.0 case study number 10, No Homesick Angel. Here's the description of this case study. We'll examine an airmanship-related accident that could have been prevented if the pilot had been practicing Airmanship 2.0. Now, we're not pointing fingers, though, at anybody involved in this. All we're doing is using this case study as a way that we can learn from others' mistakes. And you know, as an airman, that's a very important principle to have assimilated into your day-to-day activities. And we're also, as we go through this case study, going to practice identifying links in error chains. Now, I hope that all of you have heard about error chains by now. They're a part and parcel of CRM training. So if you've had professional training, you've been through it there. The FAA talks about it a little bit. We're starting to see it mentioned more and more in our aviation publications. So, basically, every accident has a chain of links that lead to that accident. Decisions, errors, malfunctions, whatever. And I've heard it said that there are 3 to 7 links in every chain, although I've analyzed some accidents here and some of these earlier ones we've done and come up with more than 7 links. So, but at any rate, there are a number of links normally in an error chain that leads to every accident. So what we're going to do is practice identifying links in the error chain in this accident, and then we're going to talk about how we might have eliminated those links. And in particular, I'll put the emphasis on how Airmanship 2.0, the practice of it, could have eliminated that link in the error chain. Now, all of the information here in this presentation comes from the NTSB factual report on the accident and some background information out of the New York Post. The accident took place on July 5th, 2010, so a couple years ago now. It was a Cirrus SR-22. It was manufactured in 2005, so it's 5 years old at the time. Owned by the pilot. Part 91 operation. No flight plan filed. 3 occupants of the aircraft. They were all killed, the pilot and 2 passengers. And the 2 passengers were family members of the pilot. I believe it was a stepson and his wife, as I recall. The crash took place at Essex County Airport in Fairfield, New Jersey, and here you can see that located on the northwestern edge of the New York-New Jersey megapolis there. The accident pilot was Dr. Margaret D. Smith. She was 70 at the time of the accident. She held a private pilot certificate with airplane single and multi-engine land. She had an instrument rating. Total flight time was 885 hours. Total Cirrus SR-22 time, 287 hours. So quite a bit of time in type. But I'd like to point out here, because I won't remember it later, Kern points out in Redefining Airmanship that the Air Force did a study, and if you have less than 400 hours in type, you are at much higher risk for error in the airplane than if you have more than 400 hours in type. So even though 287 hours in type is really a lot for us personal flyers to have in one type of airplane, it's really not up to the level where the Air Force study, and I think common knowledge pretty much indicates that you're comfortable in that airplane, you really know it well, you've got all your procedures down and so forth. So looks like a lot of time, but not really. She held a third-class medical that was issued the year before with waivers and limitations. We don't know what they were. She had an instrument proficiency check on June 27th of the prior year. So on paper, she was pretty current and pretty experienced. Now, we don't have any information on her flight time in the last 30, 60, and 90 days before the accident. We don't know when she originally learned to fly, so over how many years she flew those 885 hours. So we don't know really how much she was flying prior to the accident. The airplane, again, a Cirrus Design Corp SR-22, serial number 1690, so, you know, not real early in the run, so mature airframe. Annual inspection was completed the year before. Total airframe time was only 601 hours. And the Continental engine had a Continental engine IO 550, 310 horsepower, so a lot of oomph to get that airplane going when you needed it. The accident flight actually departed Plattsburgh, New York at 1600 on the afternoon of the accident. Here's Plattsburgh up here, upper Hudson Valley, and There's Essex County down here in the Megapolis. You can see the route of flight was pretty much down the Hudson. Again, no information on whether or not they actually followed the Hudson or just did GPS direct, but that was the basic route of flight, the direct route. AOPA Flight Planner, no wind, says that takes an hour and 19 minutes. As you can see, the flight departed Plattsburgh at 1600 and the crash took place down at Essex County at 1728. So pretty much looks like they came pretty much straight down, direct, and then maneuvered for the landing. Essex County Airport, where the accident took place, the accident was one of the links in the chain took place on runway 4. Let me put it that way. The air crash didn't take place on runway 4. That's the runway we're going to talk about. It's 4,552 feet by 80 feet. It has a 375-foot displaced threshold, so still over 4,000 feet. Plenty of space at sea level for a Cirrus. No visual glide path on that runway, so no VASI or PAPI. No electronic glide path. There was a GPS approach to the runway. The weather at Essex County at the time of the accident are very close there too. Sky was clear. Winds 320 at 7, so a light left crosswind, but shouldn't have been anything too difficult to handle. Visibility was 10 miles, and temperature was 36 Celsius, dew point 15. Altimeter 2994, so good air, it looks like, at the time of the crash. The pilot reported entering a left downwind for runway 4. That was on the tower tape, so everything was going smoothly as the pilot reported entering a left downwind on runway 4. The last radar return showed the airplane at an approximate 1 mile final, at about 800 feet above ground level. So here you can see, this is a quick diagram to get the perspective here. At 1 mile out on a 3-degree glide slope, you should be right around 300 feet AGL. However, this flight, they're at 800 feet AGL, so 2.5 times or thereabouts higher than they should have been. So very steep approach. Now, there were some witnesses. One of them was a student pilot that was doing his run-up down here with an instructor in the airplane with him at the approach end of runway 4. So he had a good view of the approach and the landing. He was preparing for takeoff on that runway. He observed a Cirrus airplane on final and noted that the airplane was a bit high and a bit fast. That's a quote. His instructor commented to him that the airplane was not stabilized, and this would likely be a close call. The student reported that the airplane touched down midway down the runway, or maybe towards the end. At least it was a beam the tower when it touched down, this witness reported. So you can see in this diagram, if that truly was a beam the tower, she landed almost all the way down the runway. Now we're going to have some other witnesses give a little bit different report, so keep that in mind. Eyewitnesses generally never get it exactly right. The airplane appeared to be rocking or bouncing according to the student pilot witness down at the end of 4. The student witness continues that the pilot initiated an abrupt climb at a relatively high nose-up attitude. The airplane climbed extremely fast at the end of the runway. At about 200 feet above the runway, the airplane did not level off, but the nose attitude dropped slightly. The airplane seemed to hang in the air for several seconds. Now again, this was the student pilot witness. Still with the student pilot witness, he felt that there was something clearly wrong. He stated to his instructor that he thought the airplane was going to crash. The airplane did a stall spin dive to the right or left, that's a quote, and descended almost straight down. Then it disappeared behind the tree line. He then observed a smoke plume rise from above the tree line. Now, a second witness, who was located in airbound aviation, which is located about here, so about 2/3 of the way down the runway, he was inside the FBO at the time. He observed the airplane land about 3,000 feet down the runway, he thought it was, and stated that the airplane landed hard, then bounced. The airplane then went around, and he saw it over the building and trees past the end of runway 4. The airplane then began a turn, stalled, and descended behind the trees. Still the third witness now in airbound aviation, another guy, observed the airplane land hard about 3/4 of the way down runway 4. He observed the airplane power up, and it passed over the buildings past the end of runway 4. The nose of the airplane then came straight up, and the airplane started a turn to the left, and then descended straight down until it crashed. One more witness, a fourth witness that was on the ramp. At the time of the accident, he observed a Cirrus airplane porpoising down the runway, down runway 4 at 40 to 50 knots. He stated that the airplane was porpoising hard. He saw 2 full porpoise arcs before the aircraft disappeared out of sight. He turned around and saw the airplane again, past the departure end of the runway and climbing. Still the fourth witness. The airplane entered a steep bank to the left with the nose pointing about 90 degrees left of the runway center line. He watched as the nose fell below the horizon and the airplane headed straight toward the ground, nose first. He saw the airplane disappear below the horizon and then observed a fireball and black smoke coming from the accident site. So all 4 witnesses, their stories are pretty well corroborated. They didn't see the exact thing, but they saw what I'm sure we'd all agree was a stall spin, loss of control in flight situation. Now here's the post-crash analysis. Portions of the accident sequence were recorded by 4 building motion sensor security cameras. Now, I searched YouTube and the internet for these clips, and nobody's got them up, or at least I couldn't find them. Those would have been very interesting, I'm sure. But at any rate, the 4 cameras caught it. The NTSB looked at them. The examined videos revealed an in-flight loss of control, a steep bank and vertical descent, and an impact with terrain at near vertical nose-low attitude. The Cirrus SR-22 Pilot's Operating Handbook, the balk landing procedure states, disengage the autopilot, apply full power, then reduce the flap setting to 50%. If obstacles must be cleared during the go-around, climb at 75 to 80 knots with 50% flaps. After clearing any obstacles, retract the flaps and accelerate to the normal flaps up climb speed. The wreckage was found adjacent to a business located in Fairfield, New Jersey, which is just a little north of the airport there, about a half a mile north. An examination of the initial point of ground impact revealed that the airplane struck the asphalt driveway in about an 80 degrees nose-down attitude. All flight control surfaces, engine, propeller, and CAPS components were located at the accident site. CAPS is the Cirrus airplane parachute system. No evidence of airborne CAPS deployment was observed. Control continuity was confirmed from the ailerons, rudder, and elevator to the cockpit controls. The flap actuator shaft was extended about 1 inch, which was indicative of 100% flap extension. The roll trim motor was found in the full left trim position. The pitch trim motor was found in the full nose-down trim position. The initial point of ground impact included the separated propeller and propeller hub, which was embedded about 12 inches into the asphalt. The propeller exhibited 45-degree shear lips. Now, this isn't the picture of, obviously, the Cirrus. This is a Cessna 400 series airplane. But this is a good picture of what it looks like when the propeller blades contact the runway while the engine is still turning those blades. They're bent back like that, usually at a really good angle. All 3 propeller blades exhibited rotational scoring, blade twisting, and bending, curling near the blade tips. All 3 blades were missing material from their tips. An examination of runway 4 revealed 2 sets of strike marks indicative of a propeller contact with the runway. All four, or a set of 6 marks, was located at about 2,300 feet from the approach end of runway 4, and another set located at 2512, so about 212 feet further down, end of runway 4, so you could just visualize a porpoise or a bounce going a couple hundred feet easily. Several fiberglass pieces identified as fragments of a nose wheel pant were scattered around the area at the intersection of Taxiway Bravo and Runway 4. The Runway 4 again is 45.53 in length. So you can see that, again, those eyewitness reports about where she first touched down and bouncing and so forth, they're pretty well corroborated here with the evidence that the NTSB discovered in the post-crash analysis. Now, as the FAA usually does, they sent a blood sample out to CAMI in Oak City, and a post-mortem examination of the pilot was performed. The autopsy report noted the cause of death as blunt impact injuries. Forensic toxicology was performed on specimens of the pilot by the FAA. The CAMI toxicology report was negative for ethanol, so apparently she wasn't drinking, cyanide, carbon monoxide, and drugs. NTSB probable cause. The pilot's failure to maintain aircraft control during the go-around following a hard landing. Contributing to the accident was the pilot's continuance of an unstabilized final approach and the improper use of flaps during the go-around. All right, well, let's got all the facts there. This is a little thin on background and detail and all of that, so we got through it fairly quickly this evening. But I want to take a little different approach to how we start to identify these links in the error chain. If you've attended these before, you recall that I usually have a series of poll questions, and that works pretty good. But I thought I'd try something different this evening, see if we can get a little more discussion going. So let's work on identifying these links by having a little whiteboard discussion. Now I'm going to use a Word document to do that, so I have to exit that PowerPoint, and there we go. So we're going to use this as our whiteboard. So let's start making our list, building our list here of links in the error chain. So if you have identified at least one link in the error chain, please raise your hand now, and I'll open up your mic, and you can share it with us. And I've got my list, and there's more than one link that I identified. Okay, Hugh Ryan. Hugh, your mic is open.
Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Well, I guess one goes right back to what you said initially, which is probably a lack of experience with the aircraft. She sounded like she really wasn't on top of how to deal with the go-around, and that contributed to the issue, or to the problems. Question for you, do we have any idea why she was 800 feet high on the turn?
On final, a mile out, which is she should have been at 300. No, there's no data. I think, though, that the evidence indicates it was just a high, fast approach.
Okay,
So
nothing from the tower about looking for something or anything like that that might have distracted her?
Good questions, but no, nothing in the info on that. Great. Well, great, Hugh. That was good one. How about anybody else have any error links? There's one, low time in the airplane. And as we say, the data shows that if you have less than 400 hours in type, you're much more likely to make mistakes, errors in the airplane. All right, I'm ready to believe everybody fell asleep here and nobody's participating. Okay, Paul Baumgartner. Paul, go ahead.
Can you hear me okay?
I hear you loud and clear.
I would say not having a good, consistent approach technique. She's high, fast, and all the things that make getting on the ground much more difficult. So that was my opinion.
Great, Paul. We're getting a little feedback or something there in your audio, but I got the message. Unstabilized approach. Yes, I think that's definitely a link in the error chain, and it's definitely something that contributed to the accident. Stand by here just for a second. I'm going to take care of a little technical thing. Okay. All right, so very, very good, Paul. That's a good call. There are some more links here. How about Steve Acerbi? Steve, I've got your mic open. Go ahead. Steve, we don't have much.
Vertical guidance.
There we go. Lack of vertical guidance. Is that what you said, Steve?
Yes, sir.
I agree. Lack of vertical guidance. You know, I always like to have vertical guidance on every runway, no matter what kind of airplane, if I can get it, because it's just one more clue, one more piece that you can use to have a good stabilized approach. And I'm a firm believer in stabilized approaches. I don't think they're really taught in our personal flying end of the game by most instructors. I know a lot. I'm still doing some instructing, and I fly with pilots, personal flyers a lot. And, you know, I notice a lot of them have not bought into the stabilized approach. There are a lot of theories and a lot of thinking about how why non-stabilized approaches are better for little airplanes, but I'm not a believer in that. I think stabilized approach is critical. Okay, Tom Vogt. Tom, mic's open.
Yeah, actually, I was. My thought was the traffic pattern. I mean, even though it is a controlled airspace, it just seemed like there wasn't proper preparation for landing. The aircraft was ahead of the pilot.
Exactly. So there are actually two of them there. You're right. The traffic pattern, because she obviously was not following her normal pattern procedures, because she ended up 800 feet high at a mile out, which was way too high. And then also the behind the airplane she seemed to be. And I think you're right. That's also kind of evidenced in that go around too. So usually that indicates lack of proficiency. So we'll put that down. All right, great, good, Tom. Whoops, I got that one right. Excuse me, I'm kind of anally retentive on those kinds of things. All right, Tom, we closed you off your mic. Anybody else like to come up with a link in the air chain that they observed? I've got a couple others here. Okay, Matthew Coombs. Matthew, go ahead.
Yeah, I noticed you said she had pitch trimmed down, full down, and also fully to the left, I believe it was. So,
yes.
Just misuse of flight controls, and the flaps were completely down, so she didn't reconfigure after go-around.
Exactly. So yeah, you're right. We could put that under misuse of flight controls or not knowing procedures. You know, I'm gonna close your mic, your microphone, Matthew. I was kind of trying to figure out why she would have that full left trim and full nose down trim. Now it could have been the nose down trim because she had nose up trim and full flaps when she poured that power on us, so she might have been trying to get that trim nose down, but she went all the way with it. So kind of to me like she panicked maybe and held that switch all the way to the left forward position and trying to handle the airplane. So she made it more difficult to control the airplane, and I think you're absolutely right that the mistrim contributed to the loss of control in flight, and of course the flaps probably were a major link in that in the chain in that they caused the airplane to slow down, and then she let it stall. So absolutely, those are very good comments, Matthew. All right, this is good. We'll get this list up here. Let me see if I see any new names. Larry Wilson. Larry, you have another one?
Yeah, I think these Cirrus have a problem that has not really been advertised or people know about too much with the porpoising. I've seen it. It's happened locally to our one of our flight clubs locally, and I've heard of several other instances, and Cirrus won't own up to it. But I think there's a problem that maybe she got herself into the problem of the porpoising, but no training on what to do when that happens.
Right on, exactly, Larry. I recognize that too. I think that's one of the major factors. We're going to be using Cirrus as an Airmanship Development Support Organization demonstrator. We're in the process of standing up. So we've been looking at the Cirrus a lot. And the Cirrus, I think it's a great airplane. It does wonderful things, but it, like all airplanes, it has its idiosyncrasies, and one of them that we've noticed is this landing problem. Part of it, we believe, it wasn't an apparent factor in this case, but the caster nose wheel, if you land fast and hot and then just give a little bit of nose down pitch, you can get it up on that nose wheel, and boy, then it's, you're going off the runway right then and there. And so, and also, as you recall, Cirrus had a problem 2 summers ago where they had a safety stand down because Cirruses were going off the runway, and they had determined that overall Cirrus pilots were landing faster and faster and flatter, and that was causing a lot of the landing accidents, which was probably true. And that's not unusual to see approach speeds creep up in a pilot group that are flying a type of airplane over time. It's kind of a getting sloppy kind of thing. So I would expect from the evidence, or I believe from the evidence, that you're absolutely right. She had poor landing skills. She was going fast. She started out trying to force it down on the runway, and then she got the porpoising and the blade strikes. It's a wonder she didn't lose control of the airplane on the runway. But then once she got it going, with that bent up blades and the flaps, full flaps, she kind of, had her hands full there, obviously. Okay, I'm going to put all the hands down just because I can't remember who I've asked recognized at this point. So if we have some more identified links in the air chain, or just comments or questions, please put your hand back up now. Kent Caston. Kent?
Yep. In this whole accident chain, I think we were missing the bigger picture, which is absolutely poor decision making on the pilot's part to even make the approach at that level.
Make it at what level? What do you mean by that?
Well, where you're 800 feet high over where you should be 300, so you got 500 feet differential, you're forcing a bad position to start with.
Gotcha. In other words, she should have made the decision to go around out there.
Way out there, yeah.
Right, exactly right. So poor decision making. Very good, Ken. Okay, let me see. I've got a couple more hands up, I think. Here we go. How about Debbie Dahl? Debbie, your mic is open.
Well, that's what I was going to say.
Okay.
Being a new pilot, I've been taught over and over, looking at that high, if you're too high, go around right away. So I guess that's what I was waiting to see.
Great. Good observation.
At 800 feet, go around then. Don't even try to go down.
Exactly.
Unless you're getting a really good slip.
Well, a really good slip and really proficient at slipping. That's the thing here. I think, we've seen this over and over as a cause of accidents in our personal flying world, of people not abandoning that approach when they know it's no good. Especially now today with GPSs, I always fly. If I've got a GPS, I always have the runway end as a waypoint on, even if it's a visual approach. So I know my distance to the end of the runway, and then I just apply that little formula. For every mile away from the runway, I want to be 300 feet above the ground. 2 miles away, 600 feet. 3 miles away, 900 feet. And I just check that as I approach, even if there is no visual or electronic glide path. And it really is, it's surprisingly accurate. So, we tend to get sloppy, and that's part of this too. But you're absolutely right, poor decision making. Okay, David Miles. David, your mic is open.
Yeah, I'd like to go back a little bit before she started the flight. What kind of day did she have? Because this flight occurred, at the end of the day. Was she stressed or tired or something like that? Because did that have any impact on the flight?
Good question. That's right. There was no information in the data on that, and I wondered about that too, because they apparently were on vacation up there in northern New York, upstate New York, and so who knows? It might have been she had to get rushed back. She was a pretty prominent doctor. Did a lot of social things, a lot of charity work. So maybe she had to get back for something. So a good question. External pressures. That might have been why she rushed that approach or didn't want to abandon it. She had to get on the ground, right? Good comment, David. All right, let me scroll through a little bit more. These are all great. And again, now I'm trying to remember who had their hand up before, but let me go on down. A couple more. All right, I think I'm going to put all the hands down, and I'm going to scroll through one more time because I want everybody to have an opportunity to talk about these things. And then I've got one that we kind of alluded to, but we don't have on the list. I'll put on the list. But if you have any other comments to make or questions to ask at this point, please raise your hand. Okay, I'm scrolling through. Matthew Coombs. Matthew, your mic is open.
Yeah, I was wondering with the parachute that, I don't know if that plays a role in a lot of these Cirrus accidents. It seems like people get complacent knowing that they have that as a backup. So I don't know exactly. Yeah, I guess complacency really, but it didn't seem like she even attempted to use that.
No, there was no evidence that she had. That's a good observation. The Cirrus is certified. They didn't have to put it through spin tests when it was certified because of the parachute. So the idea is you should just deploy the parachute if you get into a spin. But I think things happen so fast. Someone made a comment earlier about behind the airplane. I don't think she was thinking that clearly to even try to deploy it, although that was fairly low for a successful deployment anyhow. But I think your point about complacency is more on point, that the airplane is billed as an easy airplane to fly. That's a relative term. It's built billed that it has all these built-in safety devices, which it does, and I think they're great. But it doesn't absolve the pilot from having to maintain proficiency in their flying. It doesn't cover up mistakes like this. So very good. All right, Mark Copeland, you have a comment or question?
Yeah, hi. To add to what some of the other folks have said, and I've read a lot about some of these things, this get there-itis that had to be on her mind late in the day because, with as many hours as she had, she still should have had this plane in a better position 1 mile out than 800 feet. So, I've only got, 200 hours. I'd never be in this position without the thought of going around. I mean, you're putting this thing into a dive to get to the runway. Even in a 172, you're putting yourself into a lot of difficult situation there. And then the other thing, I was with a guy that had a real hard landing, blew out the front tire. You shut that plane down immediately. I can't even imagine to have a prop strike and, she tries to go around at that point. It's no wonder that, she wasn't able to pull the, pull lift off of that to get, power off of that aircraft.
I agree with both things you said, and I'm kind of amazed too that she continued. She took off after the prop strikes, 2 of them, but that's not all that unusual in these kinds of situations. I've seen a lot of accident reports where that happened, and again, I think it shows that she was kind of behind the airplane at that point. She just wasn't really thinking clearly. But both very good comments, Mark. You're right on it. And I just would like to say one thing about. You made the comment that you would never not go around if you were 800 feet high, a mile out, and I say the same thing, and we all say we're never going to do something, but it's this, what you just identified, the external pressure, the get there-itis, that sometimes makes us do the things we think we would never do. So one of the things you learn in Airmanship 2.0 is that anytime you find yourself in that situation, and you're thinking about trying to make it, there's a big red light and a klaxon that goes off in your brain that says, wait a minute, this is a clue, this is a cue, this is something that I shouldn't do, I know I shouldn't do it, so I'm not going to do it. So that's a good observation, Mark. Very good. All right, Mike Pitton. Mike, your mic is open.
Yeah, what strikes me, I mean, there's a lot of different ways to look at this, but what strikes me is the location of the touchdown. If there are ways to recover from an 800-foot vertical if you're a mile away from a runway, and to do it, I think, fairly safely. But if you're touching down 2/3 of the way down the runway, I mean, you're kind of asking for trouble. And then you've got a prop strike with the pitch nose down. I mean, that's pretty much a formula for disaster. So it seems to me the critical point is the fact that she's 2/3 of the way down the runway for a landing instead of a low approach, and then making a go around at that point if that's what it requires.
can't hear you since screen 30.
Okay, I'm sorry about that. That was operator error. Good, thank you. All right, well, screen 30 was what? We're just a couple back? I'm sorry about that. That happens. Yeah, it was pretty far back. What happens is I close off my mic to sometimes take a drink of water or clear my throat, and the icon for my mic control is very weak. So I can't pick it up most of the time. So I think, though, that those slides were self-explanatory that we went through, and I'm not going to go back over them, but I will record them again on this presentation, and that'll be up on the website if you want to go through those, pick up on what the narrative was on those slides. So thanks for pointing that out, David. All right, the closeout here is that I'd like to encourage you to register for airmanship updates on Center for Airmanship Excellence. Looks for the wing program briefings that you miss on airmanshipexcellence.org. View the Airmanship 2.0 briefings at airmanshipexcellence.org. Subscribe to Captain Dave's Hangar. That's my blog. You can get to that from airmanshipexcellence.org. The next case study is going to be on June 15th, number 11, Not Enough Oomph. And I'd like to ask you to spread the word about Airmanship 2.0. Well, thanks again for attending this evening. And if you have any other comments, please contact me with your questions at this phone number. That's a good one. I don't monitor it all the time, but there's voicemail on it, or there's a good email address for me, or you can just click the contact button at airmanshipexcellence.org. So I'll leave you with this final thought. Fly safely.